Hello and welcome back to the Concept Checkup. The point of Concept Checkup is to dive into the Warframe forums or other source, look for a community-made Warframe concept, and talk about it. For the purpose of Concept Checkup, I will use my custom-built evaluating method known as AS. Without further ado, let's begin the checkup. For today's checkup we have Moirai, the Puppeteer Warframe. Moirai was created by George Mink on ArtStation. Moirai is not a complete concept as of making this checkup due to lacking stats and a third ability, but he still has enough material to his theme to warrant being discussed. Anyways, Moirai's passive is as follows. Once per enemy, any enemy who sees Moirai will be temporarily feared and forced into cover. Because the passive mentions that enemies will be feared for a short duration, I assume that affected targets will be feared for anywhere between 3 to 6 seconds. Also, the passive only specifies that enemies have to see Moirai in order to be feared, suggesting that this passive's range is limited only by enemy vision. If that's the case, that means that Moirai's passive will affect any enemy that sees him from all limits of vision, whether it be right in front of him or as far away as possible. Having an enemy be feared from over 40 meters away seems a little bit silly, so I would suggest implementing a 10 to 25 meter range on this passive. Assuming that enemies are feared for 6 seconds or so, this could easily be one of the best passives in the game. Any more than that, and you're starting to push the boundaries of how powerful a passive can be. Yes, the fear effect might only apply once per enemy, but every second an enemy is feared is a second they're not shooting at you, which translates to increased survivability in high levels. Moirai's first ability is MANIKIN. Upon activation, Moirai jumps atop a target, becoming invisible and invincible, all the while increasing his controlled target's damage. Unalerted enemies will not attack you during MANIKIN unless you attack first. Reactivating MANIKIN while a target is already being controlled causes Moirai to force his current target to be grounded, while also jumping to his new controlled target. This ability could be very good or very bad, depending on how it works. If using MANIKIN allows Moirai to fully play as his possessed target, such as gaining low movement speed but high armor upon taking control of a bombard, or gaining high movement speed and the ability to teleport upon taking control of a manic, this would sound both incredibly fun and powerful. If Moirai's controlled target also gains the ability to inherit damage mods, including elemental mods, this would allow Moirai the possibility of retaining corrosive DPS from a weapon build while at the same time gaining the armor capability of a heavy gunner or a bombard. That in and of itself would be crazy good for a first ability, even more so if Moirai is designed as a squishy caster, because that would mean that Moirai would have to worry less about staying alive and more about finding a tanky enemy to assume control of. However, at the same time, that would mean that all Moirai has to do to win is possess the strongest enemy in view. To be fair, all that Loki has to do to win is press 2 and 4, so I suppose this doesn't really matter. MANIKIN could be a very powerful first ability, because all you'd have to do to never die is take control of any enemy with armor and damage output, such as a high-level heavy gunner or a bombard, and begin killing everything around you. That sounds like it would be a programming nightmare, but if it can be done, it would probably be incredible to play with. Moirai's second ability is Abhorrent Parade. Using Abhorrent Parade on any enemy, whether they're alive or dead, will add them to a chain behind Moirai, dragging them along with him. Any dead enemies in the chain have damage redirected onto living enemies in the chain. Lastly, casting Abhorrent Parade while activating MANIKIN is still possible, but it instantly alerts all unalerted enemies near you. Abhorrent Parade explicitly says that player movement is not inhibited while it's active. If you are really meaning to tell me that we will be able to drag along potentially over 10 ragdoll enemies at a time while continuing to bullet jump and roll everywhere, my enjoyment of the Parker system in game will be increased dramatically. Otherwise, it's a little bit odd for a Warframe ability to have little effect on its own. Yes, dragging enemies along does serve as crowd control, but otherwise Abhorrent Parade doesn't deal damage, provide damage reduction, or activate a buff. Is this a bad thing? Absolutely not, because being able to nullify enemies entirely by forcibly dragging them along with you is stronger than it sounds. It's just that the idea of a power that also serves as a setup for another is rather interesting. Speaking of that, Moirai's fourth ability is Centipede. Like the name implies, Centipede creates a large centipede-esque monster out of all the corpses that Moirai has gathered from Abhorrent Parade. Living enemies will instead be grounded. The toughness of Centipede is determined by the EHP, short for effective health points, of the total corpses from Abhorrent Parade. Centipede forces nearby enemies to attack it, all the while stunning and fearing all nearby enemies. Reactivating Centipede adds all new corpses from Abhorrent Parade to Centipede, and it also teleports Centipede to Moirai's location. I'm not going to lie, this ability reminds me a bit of Atlas's Rumblers, but given that the spawned ally is based on EHP instead of a flat health pool, this ability seems great by comparison. Having the ability to keep adding on to Centipede with fresh corpses is a nice touch, because it means that Centipede can remain alive so long as it keeps being provided with corpses as material, and it also means that it gets bigger and tougher, presumably. My question is Centipede affected by what corpses are used to make it? For example, if I used nothing but Grineer to create a Centipede, would Centipede then gain armor in addition to its EHP from the corpses? If I used Mosin Corpus corpses to create a Centipede, would the Centipede have the ability to spit out an inhuman drone of sorts? That's just me, though. Regardless, here are Moirai's scores. To repeat, although Moirai does not have any finalized stats or a third ability, what is set down so far is surprisingly solid, apart from a few things that remain to be seen. For my personal thoughts, I think that all Moirai needs to be a solid concept is to be fully finished, but at the same time, I feel like Moirai's enemy control abilities will cause strife from those who play Nyx and Revenant. Yeah, puppeteering is a brand new theme for a Warframe, but I feel like people might complain if yet another mind control-esque Warframe were added. Thank you for watching.